Hey everybody, and welcome back to Super Comic Fun Times Daily Vlog, where today we are going to talk about New Comic Book Day from yesterday, May 30th, 2018. So, yesterday I didn't get to do a video. I ended up watching a movie. It was a very good movie, and I might do a review of it a little bit later. It was called The Party, and Timothy Spall was the big name I can remember, and what's his name? The guy who played the Scarecrow in Batman Begins, he was in it. And it was just a kind of a little, it seemed like a little independent movie, but anyways, I'll talk about that at some other time. So yesterday was New Comic Book Day, and I got to go to the new comic book shop that I found close to my work. And I really didn't know what I was going to get except for the Man of Steel #1 by Brian Michael Bendis. And, you know, I toyed with the idea of maybe Spider-Man 800, but I was kind of, you know, when I read Spider-Verse, I was kind of put off of Spider-Man for a little while. But I'm hearing good things about that, so I think I'll pick up Spider-Man 800 next week. And then I thought about getting some of those books with, like, you know, Hong Kong Phooey, and was it Hong Kong Phooey and Black Lightning? I like the covers on those. I don't know if I care about the books though. And you know, we've all got limited funds we can spend. And of course, Doomsday Clock 5 was also a new release yesterday. And since I've only been reading new comic books as they, you know, come out, or, you know, fairly recent ones for the past, I would say maybe 6 weeks I've been doing it. I'm not exactly sure. It might have been Action 1000 that got me doing it. It might have also been The Prisoner. I don't know what, but now I'm reading current books. So I decided I should get the Doomsday Clock series up to the present issue. So I got 1 through 4 plus the new one, 5. I had a choice of 2 covers, and I picked this one. I'm not sure anything about this. It's like, I've read Watchmen twice. I just read it again in January, or was it February? It was February, I think, when Comic Book Girl 19 did Watchmen Book Club, and I really enjoy the book. That's another book that almost got me back into comics way back around 2001, maybe. My friend lent me a copy, and I really liked it. And then I would go to the graphic novel section of the bookstore, and I didn't know what to get. I mean, even V for Vendetta, I saw that there, and I didn't read that until much later. I read that in my next awakening, which was around 2012, 2013, when Nightfall 1 through 3 came out, and I also read From Hell back then, and I did get V. It's like, you know, the problem I had with picking up V then, even though it was an Alan Moore book, was I didn't like the coloring. It looked weird to me. And then later on, I saw a video with Alan Moore talking about how his favorite version of the book was black and white. Originally, it was in black and white, and how the artist had weaved, you know, had used the black and white as part of the telling of the story. And then when they colored it, it just didn't look good to me. But then I had other problems with that story too. I thought the first half was pretty good, and about the time when V is like singing, you know, I guess the New Year's issue, that didn't make sense to me, like to put music in a comic book. And from that point on, the stories didn't intrigue me as much, but I did finish the book. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. That's like 5 years ago. And so, yeah, longer than that, 6 years ago now, maybe. Anyways, yeah, I'm excited to read these, but I wanted to get the Superman books out of the way first. And I did, you know, I was very tempted to start this one today, but I want to talk about Man of Steel and Action 1000. Now, I got Action 1000 a few weeks ago, and I started to read it, and this just doesn't do it for me. It's like a bunch of little stories, but none of them really reveal anything new about Superman. It seems fairly steeped in nostalgia. So it took me a while to get back to it. And, you know, like they have things like, you know, proudly displaying the trunks here, you know, it's like almost, it's almost offensive the way that is, but you get Superman Through the Ages. I guess one of my more favorite stories. It's not really a story. Like none of these are really stories per se. Is like somebody tries to trap Superman in a time bubble or something, and so we get a look, like this is kind of Frank Miller version when Superman detonated the book. So like, I forget who it was. They tried to like get Superman out of time, and it didn't really work. But then the whole story just ends up him explaining why he's late to dinner. And, it didn't do it for me. The Bendis story was probably the best one in this one. But even though I just read this one yesterday, I don't remember it that well. So yeah, this is a book, if you're a comic book collector, you want to have, but it's not that compelling to read. This is not something you want to give to somebody who's curious or interested about comics, maybe never read one before. At least in my opinion, this is, it's like, I don't know what it is. It's not exactly fan service. It's like, and when I started rereading it again, I started on a story I had already read, and I didn't remember anything about it. It was the one, The Enemy Within, and I read the whole thing again without even realizing I'd read it before. And I realized I read it before when it came to this part here, which I did remember reading, but I still don't remember what happened in it. So overall, it's like a big monumental issue, but it doesn't amount to much, in my opinion. So this is only a must buy for people who want to have like it's a piece of history still, so it's got some value, but this book was really good. It doesn't break the Venom scale. I would say on the Venom scale, it's about an 8.3 is what I rated it. I took some notes. I don't know if I'll read from them. Maybe I'll like check back, but I remember writing about the cover, that the cover isn't that great. If you look at it, it's like none of these characters except for Superman appear in the book. And most people are smiling. I'm not sure what, Batman isn't, of course. And I just, I don't know what the point of the cover is. I guess it's a celebration that Bendis is here, the first issue. But cover aside, it's not a terrible cover. It's well done, but it just doesn't. I'm not sure what it has to do with the story. The story was really good. So like in whatchamacallit, Bendis' story, he introduces this character. I don't know if he's introduced. It's the first time I've seen him. His name is Rogol Zar, Z-A-A-R-E, and he's like wanting to eradicate all Kryptonians, and he's the one who's apparently responsible for Superman's family. Okay, there's going to be spoilers from this point, so go out and get this book. It's really good. It's really solid. Not quite to the level. If you have to choose between Venom 1 and this, get Venom 1. But this is a really good book. It kept me interested. The basic story, a lot of it is introduction, but it's well done introduction. Like Prisoner Number 1, which was dreadful introduction to the series. They should have just chucked number 1 away and started with issue 2 and catch people up with flashbacks or something. That would have been better. The artwork is really good. I really enjoyed the artwork. The villain is good. The villain is interesting. We might be introduced to a new character here. So mild spoiler, Melody Moore. I don't know if that's going to amount to anything. And for people who are fans of Super Sons, I haven't read that, so I don't know exactly what's going on with it. But there is a little bit of a tie-in to Super Sons, I'm guessing. I could be totally wrong on that. Like I said, the artwork is great. So if you haven't got this yet, this is a very good book, very solid, very. You'll probably want to add it to your pull list after you read it. So yeah. Now here's where the spoilers are. So stop watching now if you don't want spoilers. So essentially you have this character. It starts off in the past, and I'm mostly going to focus. I'm not going to talk about the story too much, just certain elements of it. I do like this kind of outer spacey thing going on here. So you have the whole exposition by what's his name? I can't keep his name in my head. Is it Rogol Zar? Rogol Zar. So you got him, and he's like, I guess these are not simply the Guardians of the Galaxy. And you have to excuse me, I don't know DC all that well. Like, you've got like that guy there who I think is a Guardian. I don't know if all of these people are Guardians. This is like taking place, a long, long time ago. And so this guy, Rogol Zar, is making his case that Krypton should be eliminated. Now, as far as political subtext, this guy can be read a number of ways. You can read him as kind of like a fascist who, wants death camps. You can also read him as like a massive SJW type who is trying to, who's like a radical ecologist, and he wants to eliminate Krypton because he's afraid that, there's science which is a poison because it keeps their footprint growing, that they're going to need more and more resources. Yeah, he's kind of fanatical that way. So, so if you're worried about political subtext, that's the extent of it, and it can be read either way. And I think that's good. I think ambiguity is good. It helps the reader to form his own opinions, and that's what I always want to do. That's what if I was a writer, that's what I would want to do. I don't want to write a story telling people what to think because they've got their own minds, and I don't want all that responsibility. So yeah, you've got some characters in here from Gotham City, and one of them is like, what's his name? Firefly. Yeah, and so they're in Metropolis for some reason. And like, you've got, this is a great, I love this spread. This is really good. So, apparently, okay, again, some more possible subtext is Superman is the NSA because he listens for key phrases. And like one of the key phrases is, where's the money? So, Firefly is threatening this other dude from Gotham, and the guy saying, keep it cool. We're in Superman City. We don't want to piss him off. And the guy goes, oh, he's in like, Tanzania or something, but the guy's like explaining to him, he listens for key phrases. And so Superman hears them, and I guess he gets all the way back from Tanzania in record time and takes him off to jail. So yeah. Oh, Justice League 1 is coming out in a few weeks. Not sure exactly what week that's coming out. This was a piece of art that somebody else enjoyed. I didn't like this one that much. It's okay. I mean, here you've got Superman like Christopher Reeve style from the movie. I think it's, I don't know what I don't love about it. I like that other scene better, but this scene here is like Mr. NSA is listening for screams. And while he's trying to pinpoint the scream, he accidentally overhears this voice. And he's like, I've heard the song before, but I can't place it. La, 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 la. Her voice cracks in all the right spots, as if there were no possible way for those words to come out. It's just about the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. What is this song? So I'm guessing this is going to play out later. I would be disappointed if it isn't. And then he kind of like apologizes to who's ever reading it that he is listening in. He didn't mean to eavesdrop. It's just the screams coming from, it just happens from time to time. And so like it ends up that there's this building on fire. And this is kind of like the main story. You have this cute little girl he rescues, but she swears. I didn't like that part. I thought this was interesting. Like she's got these two puppies. So, the two puppies, it kind of reminded me in Tarot of the Chariot card. And so, the Chariot is kind of like consciousness, will. It's sort of like the two Sphinxes guide, and they are also the pillars of, Jacobin and Boaz. These are the two pillars of the Kabbalah. Like everything happens sort of between them. I watched this show on PBS yesterday, Nova, and they were talking about how dark matter, how fast the universe is expanding. And it was like, at first nothing happened. Then like, I don't know, a million years ago or something, it just started taking off. And they were talking about between sort of light matter and dark matter. And I go, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about Kabbalistic principles. So anyway, so he rescues this little girl, and he flies her out, and that's all nice, but she's got a potty mouth. And that, yeah, I didn't really get why we needed that. He meets a new character named Melody Moore, and she seems to be interested in him. And not having read Super Sons or following Superman since Rebirth, I was a little surprised because, Super Sons and whatnot. I'm going to do it again. This looks really good to me. It's, what's her name? Gail Simone and Adriana Milos. So this is coming out in next month too. I'm going to check the first issue out, and if I like it, that'll be another one on my pull list. I like Plastic Man for some reason. I don't know why. And I talked about that before. And so anyways, she says she says something like in a whisper, then she's like, oh my God, he's got super hearing, and she's all embarrassed. But I don't know. I think there's a setup going on here. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just too much of a conspiracy theorist. Then we end up back on Rogol Zar's world, and this is where we get the resolution, and one of the Guardians of the Galaxy named Appa Ale Apsa shows up, and he's very you're like the greatest warrior, and this is another thing. He's kind of ascetic. In my notes I wrote he's kind of like Saturn. He wants to limit things. He doesn't see the need for expansion, and that's the planet Saturn. It kind of compresses you. Jupiter is expansion, and Saturn is compression, and compression can be for a reason. It's like it is sort of like what I just talked about with the universe. You expand forever, you dissipate. You're too tight, you get crushed. You can't, you're too restricted. You can't do anything. So you have to have that kind of interplay, like a kind of wave. So anyways, he's an ascetic. He's on this planet. It almost reminds me a little bit of Doomsday's planet, which turned out to be Krypton. But there's very little there, and he says between wars it keeps him sharp. And so this Appa Ali Apsa guy tells him, no, you can't destroy Krypton. They have to be allowed to make their own mistakes. He goes, it is important to us all that you are not being ignored for all that you've done for this galaxy, the sacrifices you have made. You were heard, but the Kryptonians have not acted toward anyone with aggression. Krypton must be allowed to rise or fall on its own. So this also answers a question I've heard asked, is like, why didn't the Guardians prevent Krypton from being destroyed? Because that's what they do. And of course, the Guardians weren't invented when, was it Siegel and Schuster created Superman. So it was just a natural disaster. But then as they added continuity, they added story, people started filling in the gaps. Suddenly it's like, well, we have these Guardians, and they were there since the beginning of time. Why didn't they protect Krypton? And I don't know if it's been ever answered before, but apparently it's being answered here. And so, yeah, he just decides, let's see, he tries to argue, he tries to rebut, but the decision's already been made. And then he just crashes down in frustration after the ads. Yeah, these are some of the books that I think came out yesterday too, that I don't know why I hated Hong Kong Phooey as a kid, but now he's on the cover, I kind of want him. I like the voice, I like Scatman Crothers. And then who else do we have here? We have Jabberjaw and Aquaman. Never a big Jabberjaw fan either. And Speed Buggy and The Flash. And Super Sons and Dynamite. Dynamite is probably the one I read the most. So, and I think those are just the covers. I don't think that they're stories. So anyways, so yeah, what's his name? Rogol Zar. He's all totally frustrated. And then we come back to the present, I guess, is Clark Kent is writing a reporter on the arson, and Perry White comes by, and we just get, all this is kind of like saying, okay, yeah, there's Jimmy Olsen. Hey, Jimmy. He doesn't really say anything. And it's kind of like just making sure, these characters are still here. And yeah, I guess this kind of seems strange to me since I don't know what's going on, is because he has the picture of Lois and John on his desk, right? His name is John. And then we have a little scene where he's the kid is grown. And it's like, you know, it's called a growth spurt, is what Clark is saying. And then he has a good line here. Mom said she has no time to fix it right now and said I should, and I quote, join the legion of kids that are old enough to fix their own problems. That's kind of cool, you know? I mean, I mean, who didn't need that as a kid? I could have probably used that a few times as a kid. And then, you know, Clark says, really? And there Lois is sitting on the counter. And he goes, well, he didn't sell it. It was much funnier when I said it. And then she's on the phone and working. And then, like, Thanos comes and decides to destroy this version of reality, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what's happened there. So, but anyways, a solid read, totally enjoyable. I loved it. 8.3 on the Venom scale. Doesn't beat Venom yet. I'm looking for that book that will beat Venom. I heard Spider-Man 800 is really good, so maybe I'll get that. Maybe that's the one that will beat Venom. But right now, Venom, you know, since I've started buying books, and this is only since I started buying books, you know, close to when they come out, that is the #1 book. I'm very interested to get into the Doomsday Clock titles because I think the person on Twitter who I found the Venom was made a comment like, you know, it really is better than Watchmen. What I don't know if he meant Watchmen, the original, or Doomsday Clock. But anyways, I'm very interested to read this to see if this will shatter Venom for me because, you know, maybe it'll be very close. Maybe it'll be just as good. But if just as good doesn't shatter the Venom scale. So what did you get on New Comic Book Day? And what are you looking forward to coming next week? I'm thinking if I have to look to see what's coming out. And I think 2 books I didn't get this week would be, of course, Spider-Man 800, which I already mentioned, and Marvel 2-in-1. I hear very good things about that. So if nothing else interests me next week, those 2 for sure will be on my list. And my comic book store is moving for a couple of weeks because there's construction going on in their area. So I have to be able to find them. And I lost a little flyer the guy gave me. Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. That's the American Players Theater. If you're ever in Spring Green, Wisconsin, you want to see these guys. They're very good shows. Lots of fun things to do in what I call the comic book capital of the world, because that's where Neil Gaiman set American Gods for a part of it. And I'd been there and I didn't realize it. And then I realized I have this treasure in my backyard and it's great. I love Spring Green, Wisconsin. I encourage people to like check it out, you know, on vacation. Some of the attractions, House on the Rock, and again, Taliesin, the Frank Lloyd Wright, that's the one you want to see. You know, House on the Rock is kind of tourist trappy, but the kids will love it. And then Taliesin, you'll love the beauty, the art, the aesthetic. Beautiful place. Come and visit it sometimes. And this is not a paid ad. I wish it were. So I'm going to go ahead. Again, remember, tell me what you're excited for. Tell me what you thought of the Man of Steel #1. And I will talk to you soon. Super Comic Fun Time out.